What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. We've got a really fun, unique, and powerful new Warlock build to talk about today. The Verity's Brow has always been one of the more reliable Warlock exotics to use at pretty much any level of content. They provide solid performance in the Crucible, and they can be just as effective in in-game PvE content. The Verity's Brow is an exotic helmet that literally transcends energy types. It provides amazing synergy with any subclass, but today I'm going to be showing you how in Season of the Wish, the Verity's Brow is able to transform this average Broodweaver build into a non-stop thrill ride that's filled with infinite, overpowered grapples, insane ability regeneration, and a wealth of resources to keep you alive and kicking ass no matter what you find yourself getting into. The Verity's Brow comes with the 4th magic intrinsic trait. Weapon kills with a weapon that matches our subclass will grant stacks of death throws. This will max out at 5 stacks and will last 11 seconds. Each stack of death throws provides us with 2 amazing benefits. First off, we get a 20% increase in grenade damage off of each stack of death throws. And this is where we're able to give this Broodweaver's build a unique twist when using the Verity's Brow, because we're not using Shackle or Threadling grenades, but instead we're using the Grapple melee attack, which is capable of charging into and unraveling several enemies at once. And because of Verity's Brow, those grapple attacks are going to have their damage increased by between 20% and 100% with a full 5 stack of death throws. And along with increased damage, we'll gain a 50% increase to the regeneration rate of our grenade energy with each stack of death throws. So that'll start as a 50% boost in grenade regeneration, and it will round out at a 250% increase, which is going to allow us to use those overpowered grapples a lot more often. As I mentioned before, this buff only lasts 11 seconds, but it can be immediately reactivated after the timer goes away or after you perform your grapple melee attack, which works out really nice because you're able to use this to create an extremely effective combo loop. Shoot down a few rank and file enemies with a strand weapon, get your grapple charged, and then close the gap with an overpowered attack that decimates everything around you. There's another benefit in running Verity's Brow, since it provides teammates with bonus grenade regeneration whenever we use our grenade while death throws are active. This gives our allies a 5-second buff called Feel the Flame, giving them a ×10 bonus to the regeneration rate of their grenades, which could really come in handy in the middle of a trials match or in the middle of a raid encounter. Now that we've talked about the benefits that the Verity's Brow is going to provide us, let's talk about how we're setting up this Broodweaver class tree. Since we're going to be storming into enemies with reckless abandon whenever we use our grapple attacks, it'll be wise to use the Weave Walk aspect. This lets us consume our melee charges to gain a brief period of near invisibility, giving us a 90% bonus in damage resistance that we could instantly engage right after the use of our grapple attack. While we're floating around in this Weave Walk state, we'll generate additional threadlings, but the longer that we stay in this form, the more melee energy will get consumed. It will consume 1 full charge of our arcane needles to activate this ability, and it'll take 1 melee charge every second that we stay in the Weave Walk. So I find it best to use this sparingly, and when I do use them, I try not to use more than 1 or 2 charges at a time. That way we can try to keep 1 as a fail-safe reserve in case some crazy shit starts to happen. We're also using the Wanderer aspect, so this is going to cause our threadlings to create tangles, and tangles will now suspend enemies on impact. This will be extremely beneficial with the use of Verity's Brow, since we'll be able to wrangle in a group of enemies with a suspension, and then unload on them with our overpowered grapple attack. Since we're using the Weave Walk aspect, we're only able to equip 3 strand fragments, so we will need to choose wisely. We're using Thread of Generation, which is going to give us a small amount of grenade energy each time we damage a target, which includes damage from threadlings, tangles, weapons, and any other ability. And when stacked on top of the bonus regeneration that we'll have from death throws, this is going to greatly improve the uptime of our grapple grenades. We're also using Thread of Fury. This is to help generate extra melee energy so that we can have our Weave Walk available just as much as our grapple. This generates additional energy whenever we deal damage with a tangle, and will get between 10% and 30% energy based on the combatant's difficulty level. And no Strand build is complete without having Woven Mail, so we're using Thread of Warding, which is going to give us that 45% damage resistance bonus whenever we pick up an orb. Between our class tree and the Verity's Brow, we're already looking at insane uptime of all of our abilities, but we're nowhere near done perfecting this build. With the use of several different artifact mods, this Broodweaver Verity build is going to get some significant improvements. Starting with the use of Solo Operative, whenever running an activity by yourself. This grants a bonus of 15% to ability and weapon damage, and with From Whence It Came, whenever you fight taken or scorn enemies, your abilities will deal an extra 5% damage. We're also using Wished into Being, so when we are close to having our super energy, our abilities are going to create extra orbs, creating 3 in total, which will help us get Woven Mail, and it'll trigger several armor mods that we'll talk about here soon. We're also using Unraveling Orbs, which will ultimately allow us to deal more damage. This gives those weapons the ability to unravel targets and pierce barrier shields after collecting orbs. We've also got Dragon's Bite active, so when we break combatants' overshields with Strand weapons, those targets have a chance of becoming suspended, which will play right into our use of the grappling attack. And finally, we're using Horde Shuttle, which will greatly benefit from our use of Unraveling Orbs, plus the fact that almost every enemy we encounter is going to be unraveled by one means or another. This causes threadlings to be generated whenever attacking those unraveled targets, which can account for a lot of additional threadlings, which also means extra damage. Before we look into the best weapons that we want to use with this build, let's talk about our armor choices. When it comes to our character stats, Resilience, Discipline, and Strength are the big 3 to focus on. Resilience helps us stay alive in PvE content. Discipline reduces the cooldown of our grenade energy, and Strength will reduce the cooldown of our melee energy, which will make the use of Verity's Brow even more streamlined and fluid. When it comes to armor mods, our goal is to play off of the use of Verity's Brow, so we have orb generating mods with Helmet Siphon, Heavy Handed, and Reaper. Since there will be a lot of situations where we're able to get our grapple energy back almost instantly, we're using 2 heavy-handed mods, which will reduce the cooldown time down to 5 seconds instead of 10. This should provide us with an abundance of Woven Mail, and since we're also using the Recuperation Boots mod, this will give us an additional source of health recovery. We're going to be hurling ourselves into a lot of enemies, so having Woven Mail and health recovery getting triggered as soon as we do is going to be really nice. We're also using Innervation, so when we collect those orbs, we'll gain 10% bonus grenade energy. With the use of a Strand Surge mod on our boots, we'll give our Strand weapons at least a 10% bump in damage, allowing us to build up those death throws more easily. We're also making use of the Bomber class item mod. With 1 mod equipped, we'll gain 12% extra grenade energy whenever we cast our Rift near enemies, and with 2 equipped, we would gain 17%. Since we'll be performing a lot of grapple attacks, we're using the Hands-On Helmet mod, so that we can generate extra super energy whenever we defeat enemies with either our Arcane Needle or our grapple melee. Now we could also use Grenade Kickstart to squeeze out a little extra grenade energy, but between our class tree selections, the natural regeneration that Verity's Brow is already providing, plus what we have thanks to these armor mods, we don't really need Grenade Kickstart. And without it, we'll have more efficiency out of our weapon surge mods. And it also frees us up to use a special finisher mod on our class item, which will really come in handy when we're running double special loadouts, or when we're just heavily favoring our special weapons, which does happen a lot with this build, since the combination of the Navigator and the Indebted Kindness, or a shotgun with 1-2 punch or trench barrel, is extremely powerful and very effective with how we're using the Verity's Brow. But those aren't the only viable weapons to use with this build. The Quicksilver Storm, the Wishkeeper, and the Final Warning all provide exceptional benefits that will pair up beautifully with this build. The Quicksilver Storm has its tracer rockets, a grenade launcher mode, and it creates tangles to add to what we're already creating. The Final Warning doesn't have a lot of range, but it excels in close quarter combat. It unravels targets, it has 2 different firing methods, and it absolutely melts. The Wishkeeper is going to give us a never-ending supply of suspensions and extra threadlings to harass enemies with. But the Navigator causes enemies to become severed, reducing their damage by 40%. It also has the ability of giving us and allies woven mail. But the most benefiting aspect of this trace rifle is its ability to create tangle points. We can use these to instantly recharge our grapple energy, and if you get a good placement on those tangle points, you can really abuse a large group of enemies. As I mentioned before, the Indebted Kindness is one of the main legendary weapons that I like running with this build, and that's because it offers permeability, which changes its energy type to Strand whenever we cast our Rift, which means the Indebted Kindness would be able to have unraveling rounds, and receive all the other benefits that any other Strand weapon would, including generating death throws. Another benefit of running the Indebted Kindness is that it can drop with lead from gold, which is a nice perk to have when running double special loadouts, since this will generate special ammo whenever we collect heavy ammo. And when we are running double special loadouts, a heavy machine gun, ideally one with Envious Assassin, like the Circular Logic, is going to be a great option because of their extended magazine and their reserve capacity. Since our grapple attack will put us face to face with a lot of enemies, shotguns with trench barrel will be a fantastic option. I do like 1-2 punch, but it's going to be a lot harder to consistently trigger, whereas trench barrel will provide us with bonus shotgun damage right after we perform our grapple. A couple of other weapon traits to look for in legendary Strand weapons, other than the obvious options of Threadlings and Slice, will be Demolitionist or Golden Tricorn. Demolitionist is going to improve the uptime of our grenade energy even more so, and Golden Tricorn will provide a huge bonus to weapon damage after defeating enemies with our grenade or melee abilities. And with that, I think we've now covered all the weapon variations, all the class tree options, armor, and artifact mods that put together this glorious Verity's Brow Broodweaver build. An extremely fun and powerful build that will bring you a ton of success in whatever you find yourself doing this season, to which I wish you all the best of luck in. But that's going to bring things to a close on today's video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Verity's Brow and this Broodweaver build, so let us know down in the comments below. And if you need help putting together your own version of this build, you can use the Destiny Item Manager link that's down in the description. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran, just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.